Yes. Call the order of the Planning Commission meeting for July 12, 2023. Would anybody like to adopt this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye, opposed? Good. Approval of the minutes from the June 14, 2023 meeting.
I have a correction if I can find them. On the second page, first paragraph, third sentence says, Mr. Cassio didn't think the one story belonged. I didn't say that.
Is there a correction or just take it out?
Well, you can probably just take it out. I think I said I don't have any problem with one story or something. But take it out, yeah. Thanks.
Anything else? Would you like to make a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 4, the Berlin Commons Concept Plan Review. Like, please.
Just introduce yourself correctly, okay, with your payment.
Hi, I'm Megan Hines, owner of the Brooklyn Commons.
Heinz.
And Eric Pepper, project architect.
Okay, you want to tell us what you'd like to do, or what your concept is?
Yeah, sure thing. So we are looking to make some plans to develop, and there's some setbacks and variances and things we wanted to look into. So we have, we wanted to just start a conversation with you to make sure we're going down the right path with what the town needs and how we can best develop our plans there. So what we're trying to do is design the project in its entirety. So we want to be able to maximize the zoning where we can have mixed use and all that. And right now, we just want to focus on breaking the project down in parts. And so before we even begin to really come up with something concrete, we want to start the conversation. I'm going to let Eric pick up.
Yeah, I think that the gist of it is having a conversation with the planning commission in whatever form that can take. We went in front of Board of Appeals a couple months ago with a variance request, and that was tabled. They had asked if we had gone in front of the planning commission yet for a preliminary concept site plan review, which we had not yet, so we knew that was the next step that we needed to take. Obviously, it's a super unique lot in terms of location, geographically, and its shape and size, its location in the historic district and in the town center district, and it's a difficult lot to develop, and obviously it has a history of some development, propositions that have been granted. I believe it was granted a variance previously, and that project can go through and whatnot. And it's our understanding also that a big factor in the granting of a variance request is that the development of the property aligns with the town comprehensive plan, or at least that has to factor in to a certain degree. And my general understanding of the town comprehensive plan, we would have a significant hardship, an unnecessary hardship, to develop in kind of accordance with the comprehensive plan of the town on this lot without some type of variance from the yard setbacks. So we had come up with a concept plan, I don't know, 6 months or so ago with like ground story, restaurant space and 2 stories above as apartment units, and very conceptual. And that is kind of what we wanted to be the conversation starting point with the town for, okay, let's talk about a setback reduction and, deal with the issue of parking, which is obviously another huge issue there. And so that's what you see was submitted. And in summary, we would like some guidance and some recommendations for moving forward.
Did you look at the Habitat was the last one?
Correct,
Try
yes.
something, did you get a hold of their plans to see what they had done, or?
Yep, yeah. And I actually have a site plan in this packet that is exactly what they had submitted for their plans.
So we would be asking for basically in accordance with what they had previously been approved for us, what we're,
How about the elevations of that project? I mean, this is quite a bit different.
I didn't include any of that because we didn't produce those plans. But they're available publicly, so.
Okay.
Everything in here is just, other than the original property survey, is stuff that was either traced based on old plans, but stuff that we actually produced, so.
and our building proposed is just very conceptual. We didn't want to put too much time into the specifics without making sure that the setbacks and variances were there, so that way we could, design it the right way.
So I know it's really conceptual, I get that. So it looks like the first floor, you're looking at roughly 1,250 square feet, 2,000 total. You're looking to have the buzz metery on the first floor in a operational
Yeah,
capacity?
we want to keep that space, we want to design it first and foremost for something beyond the buzz meter. There might be a time where that business, is somewhere else or something. So I want to keep this just focused as being some sort of, commercial space and potentially on the, definitely on the food service side.
some type of food style or whatever you call it.
Exactly, yeah.
And then second floor, which is roughly 2,000, I'm ballparking here. We're looking at about 400 square feet on the second and 400 square foot residential on the third. It shows on this, it's a roughly 2,000 total square footage of building.
Yeah, the apartments were small.
Yeah, I mean, is it apartment on second and third? Is it commercial on second? Or is
It would both, we're going through different scenarios
Okay.
here.
I mean, that is like ballpark.
Residential
ballpark.
for sure at a
Right.
minimum on top, if not the second two. We're just,
400 square feet, 400 square foot apartments, again, approximately. It's just like efficiency style.
yeah, and
That's pretty small.
and depending if we, exactly, so if we can get these set, if we can push the bump out farther, then we can have more, we can make those units a little larger.
So it
which
would
is-
be an efficiency style or one bedroom or?
Yeah, like a one bedroom, yeah. Efficiency.
And I will say, just before the meeting started tonight, the Berlin Fire Company dropped off some comments. I haven't even read through them yet, and we provided a copy for you. You can consult them as you wish. But what they were looking at the submitted packet here, and this looks like 4 stories to them. Okay. So the problem we have, the one comment that's going to be important moving forward when you keep designing is we all know Jefferson and Gay are very narrow streets. They're some of the older streets in Berlin. Chief Downing likes to say they weren't designed for cars, they were designed for horses and carriages, which is true.
It's true.
But the ladder truck that's needed for a 4-story building or a 3-story building, they are the ladder trucks with the outriggers. So they need nothing on the street to be able to service this building if there was an emergency situation or a fire. That's very difficult. We all know that. I'm just repeating what the president of the fire company quickly before the meeting reiterated to me. So it's something that they provide these reports when they see our packets go out for projects you're going to consider. I know this is a discussion at this point, but it's something to consider as you formulate your design plan. So maybe it has to be a little, and that's something you can consult the fire company to, or the fire marshal's office down in Snow Hill. And we're helping with that too. Just wanted to make that public.
What is the height of this building right now?
Yeah, I think it's approximately 34 to the top of the parapet. But again, super conceptual,
Sure.
floor plate, structure, how far down.
Back to the apartments.
Yeah.
What is the intended use of the apartments to be like a year-round apartment or Airbnb?
Well, hopefully year-round, but, you know, that's,
I know we have no regulations about that we can control what you can do, but I have ongoing concerns that a lot of permanent housing is going to be turned into Airbnbs, and these small spaces, which we need for our residents, are going to go for the high-dollar Airbnbs.
sure.
I would prefer to have a year-round resident, only because then I can know
That's
and
awesome.
vet them.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that what the
Right.
planning, that survey said, is that we need more 1 or 2 bedroom because
That's-
that's a need that's unfilled?
Hence my question.
And obviously easier to control parking with it being a year-round
Right.
residence.
Right.
That was my next question, yeah. Parking
To a
is,
certain degree.
Have you guys looked into, oh God, what's the new proposed commercial building that's going right there? Trying to like
Across
buy
the street.
spots from him in the backside or something, because I don't think 4 spots is going to be enough.
Yeah. We
He's
talked.
right up against.
Yeah, he's, I think, it wasn't really an option. We had talked to him, and it wasn't, yeah, it's,
I just think if we have 2 year-round residents, and I know, you know, it's great that they can park with 2 full-time residents or whatever it is, with 2 cars plus a commercial, I would say, it's my biggest stress is that it does tax the town's limited parking already. And I know the town's big on walking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but it is a new structure. I don't know how additional parking could be acquired.
Yeah.
But I think that's gonna be that's probably gonna be a big stress,
yeah.
I would say.
And from a design perspective, you can spend months and months kind of diagramming, okay, these are the different spots on the lot and what that reduces your buildable footprint to. And it's kind of tough to do that without, again, you know, you could do that and go request the new variance from the setback, but if that kind of parking scheme isn't approved, you know, you have to go through a couple different kind of hoops, you know. and
You just want conceptually if we're okay with it before you start dumping money into
Well,
coming up
well,
with
yeah,
something.
I know there's a bunch of different hoops we're gonna have to go through because, you know, I know the previously approved plans showed, you know, parking kind of towards the
For habitats.
the tip of the lot. But from a design perspective, that seems like a super dangerous spot to have parking and people kind of pulling out of that and backing out, considering the amount of walking traffic that does take place there. And as well as kind of that off-street, you know, parallel parking also seems significantly dangerous because when a car is parked parallel to a curb, you know there is more of a potential for that vehicle to pull out. But then when it's kind of tucked in from the curb, you know, again, ton of bike traffic, ton of pedestrian traffic going down that street. So the balance of that, providing the parking and the visibility around the corner, you know, it's just a lot of issues. Can it be provided, and could we design a building that is a vertical mass of, you know, the kind of maximum footprint with the current setbacks? You know, I know the previously approved structure was like that with a reduction of 5 feet to the setbacks, but, you know, I know it's referred to as like the Flatiron building, but, you know, I'm not sure that's the right building to go on that lot.
Being in the historical district, what building did you model that after in the town of Berlin?
None, because there isn't really any historic properties immediately adjacent to it.
there's not, might go down,
Immediately,
houses around there.
immediately adjacent to it,
and in that general area, there's a lot of historic buildings.
but that's kind of a, slippery slope of going down in the general vicinity of it. The building immediately adjacent to it, it only has one neighboring property that is not very historic. It is a concrete block on the first
But
floor.
we have some buildings in the historic district in town that do not, that came at a certain time that don't conform. Just because there's no historical, what you said, or historical buildings around doesn't mean you don't put one there that would be like something that would be in Berlin. And this, just don't get it for me. I mean, that looks like something, I don't know how the historic commission could even prove that in the historical district.
Yeah, well,
We haven't begun really designing it yet. We were just really trying to get something on paper that shows what might be able to be done with the first rendition of.
yeah,
what
this
it
isn't
could
necessarily a
look like.
presentation.
This is
to have
definitely not
that
what.
conversation about how we think it ties
Yeah.
into the historic
Let's,
fabric.
let's remember how this building got into the historic district. Explain that, Dave.
Well, this was not one that was done on the rezoning. This was
Okay.
placed originally in the historic
Okay.
district. I assume because it was behind the hotel
Mhm.
when they first mapped out the historic district. These on Jefferson were already there. And to some extent, everybody's correct. There's maybe not adjacent a building or even across the street. They're not buildings of historical importance as the code says. But there's supposed to be something, when the historic district approves a plan for the exterior of any project, it's supposed to be complementary to the adjoining area. It's general language. So yeah, this is probably a little modern for what's there. You saw recently the building for Mr. Selway across the street on Gay. They went through a couple meetings and it got softened, it got changed a little bit, but they got approved by the Historic District Commission. So that would be the final design that you're going to look at, they're going to look at. And as far as the setback issue, it's mentioned in their letter that was in your packet. The triangle building that was going on that lot that you approved, historic approved, and the Board of Zoning Appeals, they gave them a reduced front setback on Jefferson Street. So it lined up with, you're familiar with Jeffrey Oxford's building, the blown glass studio. It lined up there and it was a sidewalks width to the street, like a lot of the town center district is. So they were given that variance, and regardless of the shape of the building, I would think that they could achieve the same setback because they have an even larger rear setback than that building would have. So I think, don't know, I'm not going to speak for the Board of Zoning Appeals, but whenever they do go back to them, I would think that the precedence there would carry through. And I don't know what other factor would be involved other than we're just doing a different shaped building this time than the Habitat for Humanity building was.
On the parking issue downtown, I thought I heard once here that there is no parking requirement. Is that just for replacement buildings, for buildings that are burned down or demolished?
It's the way the code reads, it says if there's a change to the exterior wall. Sorry, I thought Mary was speaking, she was speaking now. Computer thing. The parking, if you remember, there's a section in the code that says if there's available public parking within 200 feet of the property, and I know we've used that lot over and over to accommodate for other businesses, but the lot is a public lot over in front of the post office. So that's to be walkable to a location such as this. Or to, we came across that with, even with the Habitat building when we talked about that, because they were going to have retail downstairs and residents up. And that they only had 2 spots, I believe, on that site plan. And they would have needed more. For 2 housing units upstairs, they would have needed a total of 4.
So the amount they have shown is appropriate, is that what you're saying, or is it?
It can be considered appropriate, yeah, without having to go to BZA for a parking reduction.
Just thinking like one per apartment and then two for whoever's downstairs,
well-
your workers, whatever.
Exactly, we were asking for the same thing that was previously approved for Habitat, that's all we're asking for.
It's a situation that
Or
comes
would
up
be,
over and
not,
over.
not,
I got it.
would.
It comes up over and over, because every time something new goes in, we may not be adding buildings to downtown, but I think we're adding visitors each time some new business goes in. And the parking gets, it's an issue every time. I had this discussion with Chief Downey every time something's new is going in. And it gets tougher and tougher. And then, you know, what a lot of people say, we don't have a parking problem, we have a walking problem. Because, you know, we seem like we have some spaces adjacent to downtown, but that nobody uses, except when you have a huge event, when you have New Year's Eve and 3,000 people are on the street, or you have fiddlers and 4,000 people are on the street. Then we're jammed for parking. Like most business days where people say, I can't find a parking spot. Well, if you walk down the street, you can park at the church. If you want to park on the street, you can park on Pitt Street over here. I notice it looking out my office window. And people don't do that because they don't want to walk the extra 2 blocks. And the merchants themselves, some of the merchants and their employees park right on the street on Main Street all day, and they don't need to. They could even shuttle back and forth. I don't know. Somebody's the driver, someone's the walker. I don't know. But that's a long answer, but it's within the 200 feet. That's supposed to be adequate parking.
So in other words, there's discretion out there to weigh some parking here.
Yes, and we have a section of the town code that doesn't usually get invoked, that calls for if you have a new development changing exterior wall or a new building as they want to do, new construction, that they pay into a fund that the town is supposed to establish to solve the parking problem.
Yeah,
And
good luck.
that's been on the books for many years, but I've never seen it applied.
They won't get it.
And every time that issue comes up, I remind powers that be that this is within your power to assign a fee, a parking fee. And, you know, I would gather, put it in escrow till we can acquire a piece of property or.
Why not make this a test project to implement the fund and start getting it going?
It's not up to us.
Well, I'm just throwing it out there. You can make it a condition of our approval that the fund be implemented in this case to buy parking rights.
And we've discussed the topic recently again, so I don't think it's gonna go away anytime soon.
Parking is going to get worse and worse until we finally
And
buy some land and build it.
And I would hope, you know, we are gonna embark on some fees changes for the town. Most of them haven't been updated in a while. And I would hope that's part of the discussion. That's my own, because I bring it up all the time. Every time we have a new project in the downtown or
The reason I
something.
bring that up is I lean toward, I like, as you know, esoteric projects. This is odd, I like oddities, that's what makes our town interesting. And it's an Art Deco design. I tried to open my mind to concept. I like Art Deco, but our town is not Art Deco, whether anybody else will like it or not. But in this particular case, the squareness of it gives you an implementation plan. So my mind is open to a unique design. Maybe if it was made of brick or something, a red brick with something like this, not so you have the brick look of downtown. But I think an unusual building on an unusual lot, especially if you maintain the public place out front, where you have the outside dining, it's open to the public, the same concept. Well, I think you're giving something to the town that is interesting and unique, and I like interesting and unique. So if we can get around the parking problem, and there's a way to do it, buy your way out of it, implement the fund, set a precedent, and let's start getting serious about it, then my mind's open.
So, I mean,
So are
that's
you
an
saying,
interesting
are you saying that 4 is not enough? Is that what you're saying? 4 spaces is not enough, and then you should buy some more?
I'm saying if you have your residential covered, 2 spaces. It'd be nice to have more, but on the other hand, I don't want to see a building with parking underneath it. I want to see a building that fits into the neighborhood. I don't want to see a parking lot. And he can't put a parking lot here.
So he has 4 now.
If he has 4, then I lean towards, well, if parking, we can stomach that. How many are really required for this by code?
None.
Well, some for the residential would be required.
Yeah, 2.
2?
Is it 1 each?
For that size, yeah. well,
Yeah,
yes.
400
Yeah.
square feet now. I don't know, I mean, one car seems sufficient to me. I think 4 is enough for the project personally.
Me too.
I tend to-
It's that much.
I wouldn't go implementing that don't now. Don't start that.
I didn't realize this project didn't have a legal parking problem, so. So the 2 spaces, where are they, the other 2?
They are right here.
Go to the,
2 there, 2 there.
the one page it does,
Which one are
shows
you
2 on
looking
the
at?
back. Yeah. Which one?
We might be looking at,
That's the previously, the one plan on the right is the previously approved.
ours has 4.
That you-
Ours is
Okay.
with 4. Yeah, we might not have given you the.
It's on the 3rd page.
Ron just showed me where your 2 parking spaces are. out
Two, like,
front.
parallel.
I don't want to see
That is a problem to me.
The rendition that you have here, is that a square footprint, or is that a, how you gonna fit that into triangle?
Exactly. Parallel to the Jefferson and Gage Street.
So it comes out to, I'm looking at, it comes out to a point somewhere here?
Look at this.
Comes
This
out.
page.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
it like cuts off. Yeah.
So your widest part of the building would be in the rear there, and how big is that gonna be? What's the footprint of the biggest, the ground floor unit?
Yeah, does it say on the,
I think it's,
I have it there.
your statement letter says 1257. The first floor footprint is 1257 square feet out.
But you mean like in a straight line, how far across the lot is
Well,
it?
It's about-
what I'm kind of getting at is, I mean, if you put this building there and you're gonna have a small first floor, and then you're gonna have, are you stepping in these units you're stepping those in a little bit, so you're gonna end up with kind of like a tower look, right?
A little bit,
It'll be
yeah,
like
right.
steps, yeah, like-
Yeah,
Yeah.
steps in,
It
yeah.
gets smaller as it goes up.
And again, conceptual.
No, I understand, all right.
Yeah, but the idea with the whole setbacks, you know, again, this doesn't have anything to do with hardship, you know, this is a design thing, you know, it's
Practical space.
not be restricted to a vertical mass
I understand.
like what was previously.
I get it, this is a hard place to build anything. I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what we keep talking about. We keep talking about mixed use. When Donnie came down here, good tax basis for the town with very little footprint of zoning, multiple units in a very tiny, tiny, tiny area. I mean, this is what we do talk about in this town and what we want. Like I said, to me, the parking is a stressor. I mean, that's just my opinion, because I think that area is very busy. You go down there a lot. I'm still not opposed to what you're saying, where if we thought that a fund needed to be established, and it doesn't need to be a huge amount, but it kind of sets precedent, and some money does go into that, because once again, like you said, town's eventually gonna need to buy a lot somewhere, or pave a road, pave parking, pave a lot somewhere for parking. Once the rails and trails is established and people are taking the trails down, then it does put money in the kitty for something like that. And you can buy me on that, and I can work. Have you, I'm sure you've talked to Jeff Oxford about this.
Yep, and
I'm not
that's,
saying he's good to go.
that's honestly why we have the building so far away from his building, because we kind of had a gentleman's agreement that we weren't going to try to build too close to each other. So that was already really one car width right there, and so, you know, that was, yeah.
Another word that you didn't mention, that's maybe working on this infill as well.
Infill, yeah.
Infill, it's like, that's what we want to see. This is like perfect.
That's it.
This is what we dream of, people coming forward and saying,
Really,
I
once
do
those people-
business with housing, this is, you know,
Once those people park their cars, they're walking on Main Street, they're not taking up any of the parking, they're taking their residential spaces. And I don't know if you'd make the spaces residential only or what have you, that's way down the line.
Sure.
I'm sure that can be figured out, because it does suck when you live in apartments downtown on Main Street, you go to get your milk and bread or whatever, and then there's no spots when you come back.
Right, right.
yeah, I mean, what happens when the day comes, who knows what, Taylor Bank, that whole lot, we're lucky to be able to park there now.
Yeah.
And whether it's 10 or 50 years from now, that will change
It's kind
somehow.
of,
And then on the big road.
But how many years before people get out of their car on Main Street and say to the car, go down to the elementary school and we'll call you when we need you? It's just a matter of time.
I don't have Elon on the speed limit.
I mean, who thought what would happen now would happen, you know? At some point, it's not going to be an issue at all.
In conjunction with the parking implementation plan, I wouldn't even want to see the 2 parking spaces out towards the point. I just see that public use area.
That was old, that was Habitats.
So where are the 4 then? There's 2 between
Yeah.
Oxford and you guys.
So we have a couple of,
And I am.
in the plans, we have it.
Here.
Yeah, but that's not,
Our site plan isn't this.
that's not on here. Okay, so where are technically
Yeah.
4 right now?
Okay, so there would be 2 parallel to Jeff Oxter's building, and then 2 on the tip, kind of as shown in the previously approved plan.
Like the
on
previous
the
one,
right.
the one previous
Here.
one, right? Similar to the previous.
Similar to the previous
Okay,
one.
okay.
Is what,
So
that
these
was
objections-
what was conceptually presented when we went in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Because we look at it from step back.
I would, in light of this conversation, I would say those 2 on the tip are kind of, can they exist? If they need to exist, yes, but can that also be exterior,
I think that
dining
ruins
space?
the whole aesthetic.
I don't know where.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, I hate losing parking, but
Yeah,
I'm with you.
but
At that point,
that's
keep it wide open. It's a blind corner too.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. That helps a
It
lot,
is.
that blind corner.
I'm sure I'm sure everyone would appreciate that.
Yeah. I think this is just exactly what we've been looking for. And some people might not, like the style. Obviously, it's conceptual, but use-wise, utilization of space, locations in town, it's just what we've been looking for.
I think if you go with a brick construction material to match downtown,
Sure.
No, not a lot.
then the style of building becomes less relevant.
This,
And it looks like brick on the first floor already, right? Is that
Yeah.
a gray center
Yeah,
block?
right.
yeah, these were produced before I ever saw drawings for the building that is going to go across the street as well. And that will obviously, from a design perspective, again, there was no brick down there other than kind of on the facade of the other building adjacent to the street, up on the facade of where Pop's Kitchen is, so the whole brick thing, I get it, connecting it to downtown, even though brick is 100 yards away at the hotel, or 100 feet.
I think a
But with brick across the
anchor
street.
there is important.
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
you.
It defines the commercial area and brings it into the commercial area.
Yeah, I like it.
Does anybody in the public have any? Yes, sir. State your name, please.
Yeah, Ed Hammond. I have 2 sets of concerns around this project, around the lot. And I'll just, since this is a sort of a general exchange, I'm not going to dive down deep into them. But the second one, I would like to dive down deep with the planning commission at one point. The first is just, I'm just going to make these comments generally and not terribly specifically about this. I think the town has gotten itself into a lousy position with respect to the historic district on Gay Street and on this lot. I asked around, so to speak, about the drawing of the lines of the historic district. And it was very careful, and it was to include the building that previously existed on this lot. And I think that I've been told by Dave that it was my childhood friend, John Barrett, who came up with the idea of putting the 3 or 4 lots on Gay Street into the historic district when Pops went in, I believe. I'm not so sure. I'm sure that idea was well-intentioned. I'm not so sure that was a great idea in the long term, though. The Historic District Commission exists for the historic district and not really as a review body on modern architecture. And I'm sorry, but I would disagree with Dave's characterization of getting a few trivial concessions out of the design on the Selway building as being some sort of great success for the Historic District Commission. I think that building is way out of scale and out of style for the location that it's in. But I think this is why it's such a pickle. Right now, you know, you and I can say, if somebody proposes something like this or something like the Selway building in another part of the historic district, say on Main Street, you go, no way, we're not going to do that. 5, 10 years from now, I think that there's a real danger that this sort of thing would be seen as precedential for actions in other areas of the historic district, and that could be very bad for the town. So I think that there is a need to revisit the decision and perhaps even the boundaries of the historic district, and to think very carefully about what we're doing and what, if any, precedential status any of these decisions would have and how they would impact the historic district in the future. And I think that we need to be sure that we don't use the Historic District Commission in ways that it was not designed for. I think that the impetus to put this area on Gay Street in the Historic District was that the town said, oh crud, we don't want some random stuff going up there, we want to exert some control over the design. But that's not actually a Historic District Commission job. And that area was not deemed to have historic structures. But we threw it in anyway. So I think that there are problems here that might play out very badly for the town in the future if we don't sort of revisit that and think very clearly and have some clear ideas about what we're doing in that area. That's the first. The second is, and this is the one where I have a much longer talk, which I would like to give to the Planning Commission at one point, and it's about drainage issues at Bottle Branch. Up here and clear up to Taylor House, the whole south side of town drains into Bottle Branch. And there is significant flooding on my property when there are rainfall events on Bottle Branch. In October 2019, I entered into a memorandum of understanding with the town that said, in effect, that the town would not take actions which would increase flow into Bottle Branch. All of this would be new impervious cover since October 2019. The Selway building is a lot of additional impervious cover. On South Main Street, there's a very large addition to a house that's going on that's creating more impervious cover. Now, unless the planning department can demonstrate to me that there is 100% capture of runoff, including in large rainfall events, in all of these developments, and including whatever happens here, I would consider the town to be in breach of its MOU. Because, to be quite frank, the town has been using my property for decades as sort of a last-ditch stormwater retention pond. And we never signed up for that. So this needs to change. I'm going to say one more thing. You know, and this is, I want what you guys, I want your guys' business to happen. Okay, so this is not a comment on your business at all. If you look at that area of town and what's going on, and since we unfortunately appear to have approved that building on Gay Street, which I don't think we should have, this lot should be a park. And it should be open space. Imagine that line down there of buildings that are that tall. Imagine across the street, there are areas that are not in the historic district that if you have this tall line going down Gay Street, you're eventually going to have over there. So this is just my personal thing, and I know it's a big ask. I know there's no way to do this. Man, if there were a way to get you all a suitable lot somewhere to do this, And to create an open space there, I think it would be really good and useful, and I think that it would mitigate some of the, what I would consider to be ill effects of what we're doing on Gay Street, and make the whole area a little healthier and better looking.
Thank you. Anybody else have any?
Can I address a couple
Yes,
things you
fire.
said? One, the first thing you said about, taking A Street out of the historic district, I think that's a great idea. I agree. It seemed like a good idea at first. It's caused us some problems, I think. And it could set a bad precedent, so I think that's right. As far as drainage goes, I don't know why we can't look at situations like this where it's tight spaces, can't find parking, can't find stormwater. How about fees in lieu for stormwater? Same concept as parking. You got to find someplace somewhere else to do what you need to do. If we're going to talk about parking in the same way we don't have enough parking on space, we need to deal with stormwater, and that might be one of the same ways. So we find some place in the watershed close by before your place, or maybe your place and we pay you for it, that deals with the stormwater issue.
Like a carbon offset.
Or it's like fine.
Take 10 trees down, give me 10 trees.
Fees in lieu for parking. It's the same thing, it's the square footage, you need to find.
Because a lot
someplace else.
physically cannot do what
Yeah.
would be required. It could never.
None of them do,
Right.
zero do,
Right.
and never will.
Anybody else have any comments about the concept? Dave, you have anything else?
No. I will say, partial answer to Mr. Cassio, that the stormwater calculations that are done for, especially for a new building, and the stormwater fees that the owner would pay every year, like you all do, you pay a certain amount on your property in town, in your tax bill or your utility bill. They're supposed to reflect the stormwater management impacts, if you will.
But every new development has to have Maryland-approved stormwater
That's correct.
situation, and there are places in town where that can't happen. So to me, anything new.
Well, when you say that can't happen, you mean stuff that's been in place for many years, right?
Or buildings like this, I mean, if you had to deal with stormwater here,
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're exempt because of the lot
Yeah.
size.
yeah, but we're still creating stormwater.
No, we would still review the stormwater.
Right.
Exempt isn't the right word. You might get a waiver, but you still have to have that, the calculations still have to bear out that you're not discharging stormwater onto the adjoining properties. Or when you are discharging, you're discharging into the town's stormwater system properly, which would come to Mr. Hammond's comments. So in other words, is it going downstream and is it blowing up Bottle Branch some more? That would not be on review, that would not be permitted, right? So any new building is gonna have stormwater management review. We use EA Engineering, they're our town engineers for stormwater. And I can tell you that they're tight with complying with, they're always with MDE requirements, that they are there to protect us for MDE audits on all projects. And we think they do an excellent job for us.
But just one short comment. I grew up on Bottle Branch. It was kind of my playground. Every time I came home from school, I went back down there, so I know the area very well. And I've been down in Bottle Branch with EA. They've noted how much silt and it's clogging up the channel down near Route 113 that's coming off of properties further up. But I also know a little bit about stormwater. I have a graduate degree in planning, and that's one of the things that I studied. I have a very difficult time reconciling the claims that I've heard that everything new that's going into town is not creating new stormwater problems with the reality that I know of what happens on Bottle Branch in a large rainfall event. EA, the town planning commission might, or excuse me, the town planning department might say, oh, no, this is great, this is not gonna cause any additional runoff. When I was a kid, the flood conditions that exist in the large rainfall now on Olive Branch did not exist. The water's coming from somewhere, it's not coming from me, I don't have any new development. You know, so there's math for compliance, and then maybe there's math for reality, and they may be different things.
Any other comments, anybody? Okay. You have any questions?
Great idea.
Are we?
So, and my only ending closing question is obviously the Board of Appeals asked us to come in front of the Planning Commission, and should we be coming in front of you again with a more developed site plan before we go in front of the Board of Appeals? That kind of, again, because of the uniqueness, because we're talking about both parking and setback reductions and the tying in with this building being part of what the Planning Commission wants for the plan of downtown, how does that recommendation get recorded, and then, how does the Board of Appeals factor that in? Because, that's what, it says that they're supposed to factor
You
that
need
in.
to create a site plan as close to the code as you can, and then what you want the Board of Zoning Appeals to accommodate, then you go with that site plan, I guess, to them, and if they'll grant you those things, then you come back to us, and you got, and we look at it, right, David?
But is what you're looking for kind of like a recommendation or approval to go from us to go to them? Like, it looks good so far to us. We're not gonna approve anything.
Like, for
we're just-
example, you say that, oh yeah, we cite to them everything you said, and
Right.
then they say, oh, well, we don't have any record of that, wanting to.
Right, exactly.
Dave's not gonna let you fail.
You're in a chicken and the egg
But-
situation, which frequently happens. That should I go to the board first or us first?
Exactly.
You got a very unique project here. I think if you make us happy, you might have a better shot with the Board of Zoning Appeals. So if you give us our red brick and you give us a building we like, we might say, hey, I'm okay with 2 parking spaces. That gives them the feeling, okay, we're good with that. So in this particular case, I would consider getting us happy and then going to the board. That's just my opinion. That's always a question. So
You're wanting to do that tonight?
No,
Right.
okay.
Okay.
We're just asking the process.
Yeah.
I would half disagree with Mr. Cosby, and I'll tell you why. The Board of Zoning Appeals, one of their considerations is not what the building looks like. The Planning Commission and the Historic Commission, it is. Now, it may be helpful that the board knows that you have the Planning Commission's support if you want to go that route. But if you settle on a plan and a site plan for the shape of the building and where it sits, the setback is what the Board of Zoning Appeals is going to be concerned with. And parking's another thing that they'll consider. So you want to be able to discuss that with them. But the precedent for the other building, you almost have, I'm not sure what's current and what's not in this. You almost have that triangle look going again. And that was unique to that triangle-shaped piece of property. And I remember that the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for that other building that Habitat brought, a Flatiron building, I should say. The most important issue to them was, yeah, it fits the property. It is an unusual piece of property. Well, the setback you were looking for when you went there, only a 5-foot one. That's what's already there, looking down Jefferson Street with a line snapped. And sidewalk there, new sidewalk, right to the curb. So it was pedestrian friendly and it fit with the neighborhood. So they're supposed to not allow bad impacts on a neighborhood or a surrounding area. So it fit that criteria. And that whole meeting and hearing was fairly quick because it was mapped out for them on a site plan, and it had the line on there that this is what code says, and this is our proposed setback on all sides. And we know in the B1, I know you have an agreement with Mr. Oxer not to be too close to him, but there are no side setbacks in the B1 because most of the buildings are lined up on Main Street, smack to each other. So we don't have side setbacks. So they use that to their advantage a little bit too to get some more square footage. But it's kind of a 50-50 thing here. You could come back to them with a fleshed out, much more fleshed out plan, and they might have one item for you, lighting, or Pete's gonna ask for a tree or two. I'm just saying, and before final site plan approval, you could go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. I am of the opinion you should go to the Board of Zoning Appeals first, so that that setback is approved, and they know, okay, the building fits the lot now, let's go to work on it, right? Brick, or whatever we're doing with the second floor, or is it just first floor this year? And next year, when you're more, you're ready, you've saved up your pennies, you want to build the second and third floor. I assume that's your idea here, just from, your letter said it was a one-story.
And to follow up, my thought was that they come to us with a hardened plan. We don't have to finally approve it. We just have another discussion and say, okay, cool. Because I think that it gives them ammunition with the board. We only want 2 parking spaces. We don't want 2 parking spaces out in the corner. We want the public space. I think that's something that would help the board to see it the way we see it. Not that they will.
And I think we could, and we're just talking about site plan, we're not talking about a building at all.
Exactly.
So I think we could do that tonight. If we could say, does anybody have any problems with the site plan? The building's not involved in the discussion. If we don't, if we think they're in the right direction, then we, no?
Well, again, we haven't touched it in 6 months, so.
Okay.
I think their site plan could change according to the zoning appeals if you give you your setback. So the footprint could change, so what we look at tonight or whatever.
I just was thinking that they wanted to go to there and go next. Like they suggested.
That's why I said I kind of half agreed with Mr. Cosby, and it could go either way.
It's a hard call.
Yeah.
It's a chicken and the egg situation.
Right.
So it's a hard call.
But
Again, I mean, to reiterate a point from the start, I know the biggest thing for a variance is an unnecessary hardship, and I find the most vague area of our hardship for this lot related to things that are tied to what the planning commission is kind of, promoting for the comprehensive plan of the town.
I think you got a better case for changing the neighborhood. I mean, the neighborhood definitely changed.
Exactly, which I feel like that you guys as a recommendatory body would have a statement about for us to bring in front of the Board of Appeals, after we, of course, made some changes to the site plan. I mean, however many times, as long as it's not fee involved every time sitting in front of you guys, to get this building right, for the property owners, I think is of utmost importance, and for the town, obviously.
We can't give you guidance. Only Dave is the best guidance you're going to get. We can't guide you as to where you want to go first. Express a couple of opinions, but you got to make that business judgment, and Dave can help you with that. You've heard Dave's opinions.
I refer to the habitat. I mean, it pretty much sets your boundary right there.
And just to be clear, I mean, that building footprint does not push all the way out to the furthest projections of Jeff Oxer's building, which is something that I think we are going to try to do. And that building has proposed at 5-foot setbacks, and Jeff Oxer's building has only a couple feet to the corner of its building.
I fear this. I fear you'll go to the board and ask for 2 parking spaces, and they don't give it to you. then we're stuck with a plan that I personally don't like, of having the 2 parking spaces out in the triangle.
Correct.
But if we have a plan that we approve and say, we're cool with this, with 2 parking spaces. Dave, I respect your opinion. I just think that in this case, it's weird. It's a weird piece of property.
Oh, and
And
it, definitely.
that might give them the incentive to go with our thoughts on that. So that's all.
So we could work on the site plan, come back to you all, and then it get tabled, and then we go to BZA.
It's not even tabled, we're just going to the
It's just another basically
So
concept.
if you get turned down in the zoning appeals, you have to wait a year, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you would have got this
Well, that's
way.
why they continued it the
Come back to
first
us.
time.
Yes.
That's why they continued. They didn't have enough, I wasn't at the meeting, but from what I understand, that there wasn't enough information for them. The setback that they wanted and that was required wasn't properly delineated on the plans. So they said, well, we'll let you come back, just tell us what you want to do. So that, and that's what you're saying. So Megan, in answer to your question, they're willing to talk to you about this at any time. There wouldn't be a continuance, I wouldn't put it on an agenda as site plan approval, because that requires them to make a motion that night, and you don't want them to turn it down and wait a year, if you can help it, and they don't want to do that to you either. So if we do, just like we did tonight, I list it and post it in the public as a discussion or concept plan review, no action is required by them. Now, they can make one, like Ron was talking about it, if there was enough here for the site plan, but they are not required. If I put it on there as site plan approval, they're required to give you a judgment. So we'll keep it as concept review as many times as you like.
Conceptually, great idea. I'd love to see something done there.
Yeah, just keep on working.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
for your
everybody.
time.
Looking good.
All right, item number 5, discussion item. Heritage Park. Dave, you want
Well,
to start the discussion?
I'm sure unless you've been out of the country, you're aware that we've been having a lot of discussion on a proposed contract, I'll call it, for the sale of a parcel or 2 parcels at the 3 parcels, sorry, at Heron Park, the former Tyson plant up on Old Ocean City Boulevard. And there's been much discussion the last couple of mayor and council meetings, at last night's Parks Commission meeting. The mayor and council had instructed me to get a report from the planning commission after discussion, after public input, and also from the Parks Commission of review and a report back to the mayor and council regarding the contract. And we had provided a copy of that contract in your packets tonight and a site plan. What Coastal Ventures, that's the entity that wants to purchase the property and develop it, basically developed by Gillis Gilkerson. You're familiar with them from many other projects they've done around town, like Berlin Main Place. So we wanted to open it up, the mayor and council wanted it opened up to the planning commission's feeling for what is in your packet and any public comment or input you've received already. You're out and about, you're all businessmen, you're in the community. And leading up to this meeting, usually I'll get a bunch of calls or emails with comments from the public. I have received none. I guess the discussion Monday night's mayor and council meeting and the previous mayor and council meeting so far is enough for the taxpayers. But we wanted to get your thoughts on this and then open it up to the public that's here. for their thoughts.
So can I mean, you guys for my opinion on the overall project?
I am.
So when I look at this, and I've gone back and forth and viewed this many times, I can envision Berlin selling parcel 57 and letting Palmer develop it. I would like the northbound portion of that parcel to shrink a little bit so that Berlin would still own that entrance into Heron Park, as well as that block building on the right. Parcel 191, if it's selling for 180,000 or 200,000, whatever it is, I'm concerned because Berlin uses that right now to store heavy equipment, snowplows, etc. Is it going to cost us more to buy a new building to house that than we're going to sell it for? Really a kind of a stressful moment if we're going to spend more money. And I don't know the real cost on that, but I'm sure that big metal building's pretty expensive. And then parcel 410, you know, if you watched the Parks Commission last night, skateboard park, skateboard park, skateboard park. I'm not a skateboarder, doesn't really move the needle for me, but it seems like that's what Berlin wants. It seems like it's a great area for that skateboard park, as well as a dog park, and it's open space that exists that Berlin owns. I don't think Berlin has the bandwidth or capability to demo parcel 57 effectively, as well as Palmer can do it and develop it. I know a lot of people around town have wanted us to consider demoing the building ourselves, piecemealing it and making it work. From the meetings and from my general understanding of what he's done in his career, it seems like he has a grasp on that. So I don't know if Palmer's interested in owning just that one building and making a move with that and trying to make that work. I don't know where his head's at with that. As a long shot, that block building on the right, that's the entrance to Heron Park. I don't know how far the sewer and water is away, but the building is approximately 45 by 23 feet wide, has two 36-inch steel doors right now. That would be an amazing beginning portion to an outdoor bathroom, or to a bathroom right there, if we were to do something and keep these properties. I don't know how far we would need to run those lines to it, but we could get electric there. That way we then have electric and water for this dog park and or skate park. I don't think the skate park works in many places. I think this is the best area. It's commercial, so it's far enough away from main residential. I know some people like it in the residential area. I personally would have it rather a little bit further back. There's different opinions on that, and that's fine. And then if parcel 57, I don't know exactly what he's looking at, but if we were to look at converting part of it to a mixed use that we keep pushing in this town, and that might be a big ask, but it could become a good tax haven or a good tax portion for Berlin with having 10 or 12 condos there of that 800 to 1,000 square foot units that we seem to lack in this town. At the last meeting, we had those, one of those concepts where it was, you know, a bunch of big 2,400 square foot villas, and one concept had 3-story condos that were a normal 800 to 1,200 square foot options. It seems like every time we go to these construction options, there are 2,000 to 2,200 square foot townhouses. But a lot of people just don't want an R4. If we were to look at building condo units that were for sale over top his property with the property or something like that, and I don't even know if that's feasible. I think that could open up tax revenue for the town, make the project juicy enough that Palmer might say, you know what, hey, this is still a good deal for us, you know, and be interested in the project and get us more affordable-ish condos that people could own, which I think everyone keeps bringing up, that we want to keep producing rentals and we're not producing homes that people can buy. That's my feelings on that.
Dave, going down the road here, I guess, but has there ever been, or when was the last really professional appraisal on this property done?
Last year.
Who did
Before
that?
they entered it, Trice, and now they're owned by Opteon, is the name of the applicant.
And what was the figure that they came
1.7, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What zoning was that based on?
Well, they did it several ways for us, but with the existing zoning, okay? And then the comps were done on the type of property that it is, an industrial use or a manufacturing use. And that's the appraisal figure they gave you, the 1.7 million. And that was done in April of 2022. I was just looking at it.
Do we think that price would be similar if it was appraised at a B1? It's just something I keep hearing around town.
Well, it was, they adjusted the
It was.
price up because if they did it solely as R, like R1, like it is,
Right.
it depressed it because, you know, you don't know how many units you can get on.
Okay.
So then the highest and best use, they adjusted it up.
What was the, what did the town pay for it?
For the property,
Yeah.
2.5, 2.6, 2.5.
But that includes the rear property that we're,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
with
right,
the
correct.
ponds and all, the whole,
Correct.
You mean the sludge ponds that are worth nothing?
As well as a piece of property on Flower
of
Street.
all the acreage, was 2.5 million,
Did they have an appraisal done before they paid that kind of money for that property?
as far as I know, yeah. It wasn't initiated by me.
They did not have an appraisal done?
I don't know. I was not here. I was here, but not here at that
Right.
time.
You mean in 2016, when they bought it?
Right, I'm wondering what basis led them to pay whatever it was for it.
I won't tell you I know that it was appraised, but I believe it was, but we could check. And on that note, there's been people, and I'm not trying to steer the conversation, but a lot of the conversation in the last few meetings has been to do with retiring the debt, you know, that the town had when they bought the property. And there's other considerations, you know, in this case, and it usually affects the planning commission when we have another project, not this, but let's say a new project. The entry, the roads that service the properties, the town doesn't usually pay for those. In this case, the way this contract reads, and I don't know how closely you looked at it, and this is why I bring it up, that center road, that 60-foot right-of-way, which we agreed would probably be the best, to get our water and our sewer in it, to service the whole property and future development if you had a restroom in the back. It is not hooked up, that block building is not hooked up to town services, never has been. And to get electric back there, the road, the sidewalks, everything that would be required. A cost for that hasn't been determined. So, you know, you have to consider that. You always are looking at impacts on the town. I think that's a fairly large one. I think you're talking.
Do all impact fees apply to development once, if one were to buy it and then redevelop it, all impact fees would apply there, right? Anyway, I mean, they pay all the square footage impact fees.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he'd pay the impact fees, $1 a square foot today. But, you know, we're looking at fees right now, you know, as all the staff is looking at their fees to update them and make sure they're current.
Say the town sold the front, what has been discussed about, what would they do with the stormwater ponds? Just make them walk around them, exercise
There's
pad?
going to be no change to that.
I'm sorry?
There's no change being discussed to that at this point. It will remain as a passive use park until the town decides to do something else with it. But it's not part of this conversation.
Those are excluded from the contract and
Right.
excluded from the use, so they remain as a passive park. You know, people take their dogs back there, they go bird watching, they take the kids back there. So the cost of that road, you know, it has to be figured in, and we usually demand the developers are doing that, paying all the costs. We pay nothing. So I don't have an estimate of that, but I'm going to say that's going to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to put our infrastructure under it and to build the road and the sidewalks.
I saw billions of ones already. Somewhere in the
500
package.
to a million in there.
500 to a million, that's what I saw in the package.
Is that for the
That's
demo?
what was in the package, yes.
At Monday's meeting, I was trying to listen and trying to focus on it, watching it on Facebook. There was some comment about a secondary option where the road wouldn't be ours. Did I mishear that? Which I very well might have.
It was discussed, but I don't.
It wasn't, like, no real movement.
No,
You were there, okay.
nobody chimed up and said, okay, I'll build the road.
It's just, it's tough when we're looking at selling it for 1.7, because, you know, the big push to do something with this lot is to retire debt. It's very tough to hear that we're trying to sell it for 1.7, which is less than you paid for, but that's life sometimes. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And then chuck another $500,000 to $1 million in there for the road. Once again, lose that building on parcel 191. Kind of seems like at this point, we might be making out with $400,000 or $500,000 total. I mean, financially, it's looking tough.
And still owing.
And still
over $1
owing a
million.
lot, losing a ton of good land, and not really benefiting a whole lot.
Devalued land.
And then the other consideration, and again, then I'll stop talking about it, because I don't want you to think I don't have a position one way or the other. I'm Switzerland on this, okay? But as far as the demo grant the town has received from the Department of Housing and Community Development, we've been awarded $500,000. And you've all heard, clock is ticking on that. We gotta start using that or we're gonna lose it. And we're not prepared to do that, because if we lose that grant or turn it back, that's the death knell for further grants. You don't ever do that in the grant world. You want to keep asking for more, and that's how you get more. If you put them through their work and their approval, and then you say, nah, it would not be good for the town and all the grant money we get every year. The staff works so hard to pick up every dollar we can. I can tell you that. I watch everybody, and I've been involved in some of it myself, not a lot of it. But I think the thing to remember there is we have that 500,000, but really we're probably looking at having about 450 by the time we're done with the RFPs and different things, the strategic demolition of the building, to spend 450 out of the 500. So like Matt's talking about adding up, you know, this we lose a little on, this we lose a little on. We think that when we almost know that the demolition is going to cost more than the grant, like considerable amount. We don't know that yet till we know what direction we're doing with this. This is just like Pete said before. This is definitely a chicken or an egg situation. If we have to know what we're going to do there before we get a definitive price on the demolition and what that'll buy us, that money. We don't think the 500 that was awarded to us is going to be enough to demo and clean off that site completely. It could be, but we're extremely doubtful. Our town engineers, all meetings and discussions, they're doubtful because of the price of things, the way it's jumped since we purchased this property. So that's a consideration. You got 450 to spend on demo. We're going to have to spend some more money. Is that a better scenario than having to build $1 million road and lose some money on a sale? And these are all things that we want you to consider, and we want the public to consider, and kind of guide all of us to what they want, what's the best solution for the town.
But Coastal Venture, if they do the demo and it costs more than 450, 500, whatever the number is, they own that difference.
Yes.
We don't own a cent.
Yeah.
So once again, I mean, and I know I keep harking back to it, that's my fear, that if Berlin takes us on, we're $500,000 in and we go, there's not 300,000 we need to eat to this. That's going to be I pity that meeting.
That's exactly my point. We're going to eat this much over here, or are we going to eat this much over here? But we need that direction first.
Oh, you're saying we're going to eat a lot on building the road and going into the property, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Why don't we, lay everything else on every other developer, why don't you lay that on the developer?
I wasn't the negotiator.
Yes.
Well, that's one point, you stick every other developer with those kinds of costs, why would you let that go on any other development in the interest of the town?
Yeah, I'm baffled on the road. It's benefiting him as much as us. If nothing else, it's gonna be at least a 50-50 split.
I'm gonna pass it to the other one next, guys.
Me too.
I mean,
How about the environmental impact of everything? I'm sure they buried something underneath that building and they kept adding on.
Most of us think that way too. that
You might find Hawthorne.
Just from the length of the service there, you know, how long they were processing there.
Used to be a pickle factory or something at one time, or somebody we know.
Was it?
Or a potato chip factory, there you go.
Chicken.
You're old.
You gotta go in the 1800s.
I mean, the entire site back with the water, why are we keeping that as, I mean, why isn't that now part of the deal to get rid of everything? Well, I know who wants it, we don't, why do we want it? I walk around, I've walked back there 3 weeks ago just to see it, and the pond side, all the stuff is just as tall as, you know, it's like walking through Children of the Corn. It's not really, you know.
I mean, I would
I
tell
was in
you,
the military, but I was scared back there by myself, and it was daytime.
I would tell you personally, I go back there 4 days a week with my dog. Like, that is the only area I know where I can take my dog, and I know dogs shouldn't be off leash. I do.
But you do
Yeah,
it.
of course I do. Me and everybody else, you see somebody, put them on the leash.
Here comes the chief, come on in, chief.
No, you have respect for other people.
Let him swim in the pond?
He has jumped in there.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's not ideal. But that's the only area I know that I can really take them and do that. I mean, I'll go down to Shad
And
Landing.
you're not the only one.
It's 25 minutes away. That, to me, is it's only worth $108,000 on paper. It's worth it. That's valuable for Berlin to me.
I agree, I think that's very valuable real estate, it can be made into something special. What bothers me about this deal, I don't think we know what we have. We don't know what we have because we don't know what environmental issues we're facing.
Yeah.
If we're not facing any environmental issues, we got a damn valuable piece of property. If we are facing environmental issues, we got a problem. And I'm not clear on, is Palmer going to assume the risk once he does his environmental assessment? He's going to say, no, I don't want it. Or if we tear down the buildings, is he still on the hook for long-term Superfund issues if we ever face any? I don't think the contract clear enough on the risk on the environmental issues. I think we need to find out what we own and what it's worth before we can assess what
Before we go sell it, right?
Right. I mean, are those ponds polluted or not? Can't they go out there with a thing and get some cores and find out if we're facing pollution?
They already know, yes. Sediment, big time sediment.
Okay, so that's a forever issue.
It can be dealt with over time, but it's not a swimming hole. And,
It doesn't have to be a swimming hole, but it can be safe for people to walk around and touch the
oh,
water.
to walk, oh yeah, I mean,
Touch the water.
you can't touch the sediment. That's the problem.
What, is the sediment biomaterial or is it chemical waste?
There's a report, the county has a report. But
Did
it's,
you read it?
no, I didn't read it, no, but you know, they're contaminated wastewater
See,
lagoons.
those are things I think we need to know.
There's so much we don't know
Yeah.
before we go selling this property.
The best piece.
The only piece
And we're
left in town.
And we're 15 months in on this?
How'd that happen?
Another question on the grant. Can we use the grant and just demolish one building with it? Or are they asking for a comprehensive, complete demolition plan?
No, it is up to the price that, it is up to whatever we get for the price that we get.
Yeah.
So we could just use what they grant us and go tear something apart, and we've used it, right?
We
Correct.
could, yeah.
On that, as long as it's on that site, it is not specific to any one building or any one area.
Okay,
but
so
it's the site.
we could start maybe with all those floating garbage things out in one of those ponds there, all that metal and crap.
I think we're talking about demolition of the building, not anything
Correct.
else.
Only the
That's
building?
correct. The building.
And then pick a building we know we don't want, and let's demolish it and use the money we get.
But we don't know enough about anything yet to even make that, that's the
If you got
problem.
$500,000 and it's gonna make us look bad to the grant people.
We spend it.
Figure out a way to spend it, and go demolish something. With a contractor who's not gonna pollute the world while they're at it, and make our contract cover them for that liability, like we didn't do last time. I mean, the last time, we let a contractor go in there and tear a building down without any protection in our contract, and so he created a $300,000 bill for us. I mean, you know, the contract's just gotta be written carefully and tight. And this contract, I could go on and on about the contract. I mean, there's typos in there, there's buyers and sellers mixed up in it, I'm not gonna go into all that. I'm just gonna presume this contract's not gonna be signed in the near future, or at least somebody's gonna look at it and fix it before they do. So I won't bore you with all the issues with the contract. But, I mean, one paragraph has buyer and seller reversed on liabilities. But that contract's got to address environmental impacts, talking about if there are liquidated debts at settlement, we have to pay for it if something's discovered. Well, are we gonna find out after their environmental assessment that there's a Superfund issue and something that's a lien on our property we have to pay and fix the pollution? I don't know all these things, but they're all the issues that pop in my head. I mean, if he does an environmental assessment and discovers we got pollution we didn't know about in or around that building, then under the liquidated debts clause of the contract, if the Superfund jumps in and says, hey, well, Berlin, you got a problem. We're putting something against your property. You can't do anything. You got to clean this up. Are we going to get stuck? Who's going to get stuck? I mean, I know I sound paranoid, but I am paranoid. We've been burned once on this.
We got burned bad, that's fair.
Is there still a pending fine for that fiasco of the environmental?
The EPA has not come back to us
There is
yet.
something in looming.
Yes, there are some unknown costs that we have yet to be
Correct.
It's at least
told
$1.
about on property that we're about to sell, so.
So we sell the property, we got all
We
the
still
money.
pay a bill.
To be fair,
And then
to
we're going
be
to get a bill
fair.
from somebody to pay for the environmental. We need to know what that stuff is.
To be
for.
fair, the EPA action is on the lagoon parcel, not on these front parcels, just for point of clarification.
But even then, that's all, then we need to get more money for the front parcels to cover our problems in the back parts.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, we need a global assessment here. I would say use the grant money, tear something down, and let's give this some more thought. That's my thing.
Only problem with us tearing it down, who?
Well, our contract.
And how?
Oh, it
What
would
are you
go,
gonna do?
it would go out.
You can't-
Right,
you can't tear
It
a
would be
whole
bid
thing
out.
down.
Request for
You'd be smart
proposal.
to have an engineer, a structural engineer, come up with a plan of how to tear down what.
Well, that's all in the grant.
Correct.
So after you pay all the exports, you got half the grant
Right,
left.
right, I'm saying,
Then
you just don't go tear something down.
I'm just saying.
Are we gonna give them an
Use the
NTE
grant.
for 450?
Huh?
Are we gonna give them like an NTE at 450 and then, stop it, that block does not move, we're done, we've maxed it out, and then we have a halfway torn apart building?
No,
Well, there's walls in that inside that building.
the request for proposal for the demo
Would be engineered.
would be
Correct.
prepared by
So it
our
wouldn't be
engineers.
just somebody out there with balls.
So-
knocking it
so-
down.
There's gonna be change orders, there's gonna be stuff coming back
Exactly,
and right.
and that's what the engineer's gonna find out, and that's how they're gonna price what we can get for $500,000.
Is the grant going to pay those expert costs?
Yes.
Yeah, we have.
Okay, well, so do it, and whatever's left, pick a building that can be demolished.
There's not gonna be nothing, not gonna be nothing left. There's gonna be nothing left.
Okay, well, then at least we bought,
Money-wise.
then at least we bought a study.
No,
We didn't demolish anything, but we used all the grant to be educated. We got educated on the grant. I mean, is that possible?
your
The
grant.
grant would cover the
way more than
engineers
engineering.
writing the bid specs and handling the bidding process. It wouldn't be a study per se. I don't think that it's quite what you're thinking it would.
Do we have to put money out of our pocket
No.
to affect this grant?
No.
I'm sorry, say it
Do we
again.
have to put money out of our pocket to affect the grant, to get the necessary?
No, there is no matching requirement on the
Okay.
grant.
So whoever we hire to give us advice, it's included in the grant.
Correct.
Okay? So work within the grant, use it to the hilt, and
Right.
tear down what you can.
Pete, I have one clarification question. You started out talking about environmental issues and the Superfund site. Are you referring to that when you say,
Yeah, that's what
can that come out of the grant? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm talking about using the grant. Put it to use.
For engineering and demolition.
I'm concerned about long-term, I call it super, environmental issues that we have to pay for if we get stuck selling low, and we have to pay more to the basis of the property. I don't want to pay more into this property and then sell for a low contract price. This property is going to become more and more valuable over time. A piece of property like this in Berlin, it ain't going to get cheaper. The demand is always going to be there. But I don't think we know what we own. I don't think we know the value of what we own or the liabilities of what we own. And we need to know that, in my opinion.
Before we sell it.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Anybody have any public comments or
Ron hasn't given his piece.
haven't given your piece yet?
No, when we first bought this park, I kind of thought, what are we doing here? You know, it was kind of waste of money. But the more I have been out there, and the more I've thought about it, the more I've looked at this proposal, the more I think that we would be crazy to sell it. If we indeed, I think we've talked about, you know, in the big picture, we're going to do our comp plan, not physically expanding, not annexing properties, and growing from within rather than from without. And if we indeed do that, then this piece of property, the largest piece of property left in town, is going to become very bad. And we shouldn't be essentially giving it away for the price that we is in this contract. I mean, parcel 19, parcel 410, which is almost 10 acres, for $700,000. And it will be Zone B, okay? Where can you get 10 acres of B zoning for $700,000? I don't know.
I just sold 5 acres for $655 on Evans Road.
Yeah, exactly. Every house that's sold in my neighborhood for the last 2 years has been over $700,000. That's on an 1/8 acre lot. So there's one house on an 1/8 acre worth more than 10 acres of B zone property. I don't get that math.
Do we know what Wyatt paid for, I don't want to cut you off, but do we know what Wyatt paid for plaque
He
that?
paid
and how many acres?
$360 for 2 acres.
Good basis right there.
Right.
I get it's right on the road, but good
Right, yeah,
basis.
but then when you have, as the bigger piece of property gets, the more you can do, the more value it has, because your options
So you
increase.
paid $180,000.
Yeah. So, you know, to me, I agree with Pete, the contract, as it stands, is problematic. The knowns of price are problematic. The unknowns of why are we paying for the road?
Unknowns of value.
It's so much, unknowns of the value, to me, right. Had tonight this draft terms of reference. I'd like to talk about that. When we bought the property, we were going to keep the property for recreational use. And we created a committee of people who spent a lot of time, a lot of energy to come up with plans and ideas that we determined we couldn't do anything because we couldn't afford to do it. And then all of a sudden, we're selling the property. There wasn't hardly any discussion about that. There was some, there wasn't much. But to me, once we decided we were going to sell the property, we should have had another committee of professionals in the land use business to help the mayor and council and the people of town determine, do we want to sell it? What's the value of it? If we want to keep some, what are we going to keep? How can we create more value with the land we own? Because obviously, to me, it's worth way more than this. So I would like to suggest that we suggest to mayor and council that they come up with a committee, this terms of agreement, that we can use as a baseline, if not it, to get folks who live here, property owners, people in the business, people who can assist the people who are making decisions, who need help, and the townsfolk, to determine, do we want to keep this? If we do, how much of it do we want to keep? If we want to sell it, what conditions do we sell it in? How do we zone it before we sell it so we get the value out of it now rather than later? Because I can guarantee you that parcel 410 is going to be under the contract, a garden center for only about 7 years. And then they're going to be sitting right here in front of us with a request for an upzoning, and we're going to give it to them. And we gave them that value 7 years before, and they just cashed the check. Why are we even talking about that? If we're going to sell property, let's find a way to bring it up to its highest value before we sell it, rather than selling it and putting restrictions on it that reduce the value of it. That's exactly what this contract does. That's exactly what Palmer was complaining about the last 2 nights. That We're restricting him, so therefore the value's lower. How did we get there? It baffles me. So I'm going to make a motion that we see that the planning commission tells.
Let's hear from the public.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Anybody in the public like to publicize? Please state your name, please.
Connie Pena. I spoke on Monday at like the first 6 o'clock meeting, so I won't
We
say.
can't hear you. Can you come over here to the table, please?
Yes.
Is this better?
That's better. Thank you.
He's older than he looks.
I spoke at length on Monday at 6 o'clock meeting, and I don't want to do that again. But basically, I said that I felt we should bring housing to the area to help enliven it, and plus we need housing that you can own, so that we can offer another alternative to people that, and it was multi-family housing, so condos, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms kind of thing. And the other thing I want to say is the park itself, I think it's wonderful, and it can just exist as it is, and it's teeming with wildlife. If you read those signs and you read the report they did, it's just a really important pathway for migratory birds, the park part. And my other feeling about this, of selling all 3 properties to one person, is that it's giving one person 20 acres of commercial land in a small town. And it just seems like it's consolidating a lot of land to one individual. And that makes me nervous.
They can cut that up and flip it. That's another figure.
Yeah, anything could happen, but if we're trying to move away from a town that, or a way of moving through and growing that in the past has been sort of a few people in control of things, sort of, or having more influence than others. I think giving one person 20 acres of commercial land is moving in the wrong direction from trying to be open, I guess, to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Name, please.
Review West Street. I just want to say I agree with everything that Ron said and Pete said and Matt, because right now you don't know what you have, and you're selling something residential value that you're changing into a commercial value. To me, that's like ridiculous. My daughter gave a really good explanation of it at the meeting. And I think that you need to rezone it first, if that's what you're going to do. But I think the idea of demolishing what you can, figuring out and having open meetings where everyone can voice their opinion and then decide how you want to use it is the way to go. I mean, a whole year has been wasted by the subcommittee mulling over all of this stuff that could have been out in the open, and all of us giving our input so that we're not behind. And that's what it feels like. Because I read through a lot of those emails that Ed had requested. And most of what's been talked about now was talked about in the emails. So it should have been, and this was the stuff that we're objecting to. So it should be something that's, like you said, a committee or something where we have some kind of say. Not this, if it's the biggest piece of property, I think the other thing is you can't not use it to get rid of the deck. You know, if you want to keep the nature park, fine, but then sell that property below enough to resolve the debt, so that we're coming out of this ahead, not piecemealing and behind. That's just to me practical. I mean, if you had a house, that's what you would do. And this is our house.
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment? Yes, sir.
I've been outspoken on this issue too, and I'm not going to burden you with all the things that, I'm sorry.
Don't sit on that.
That's gonna break.
Yeah. You really write it down. Don't do
You can sit there, you can sit there,
Come on,
Easy,
Table there,
We're
already in enough debt.
I'm not going to repeat everything. Last night, I had a long exchange with Mr. Phillips here and in the Parks Commission and in a couple of mayor and council meetings. Just two things that I want to say now. One is that on the environmental question, I engaged Mr. Gillis, and it's actually in writing. It was a text exchange that I had with him around this issue of what happens if we encounter, undiscovered environmental issues there. And he was quite clear. And Mr. Gillis is, the contract, it makes proceeding contingent on his obtaining funding. And Mr. Gillis has repeatedly said that he needs additional environmental studies, potentially a level 3 study in order to obtain funding. Putting the question to him directly and him directly answering me is that, if the environmental studies identify additional problems that we don't know about, he's either walking or he's coming back to us with a bill. So this is a huge potential liability that you all were discussing, but he said directly to me in our discussion that he's walking if that happens. So that's that. I am obviously in complete support of the idea of establishing a group of local experts who can look at this and wipe the lot lines clean. Just take people that are from the town, that are experts, that have training, that have experience in land development, and remove the lot lines and do a clean sheet plan for this area. And I think we're going to come out, hopefully a lot better in financially if we decide to sell or what we decide to sell, and in terms of public use, because there's also a lot of public uses that people are interested in. But I think also another function of what this committee idea is trying to do is that, if you look around town, there's an enormous amount of frustration about Heron Park, and there has been for a long time. And I think that one of the reasons why there's such frustration is that when townspeople are asked to offer their opinion and for public input, particularly at mayor and council meetings, what happens is that you have person after person come in and offer their ideas and their thoughts about what should be done, and the mayor and council sit there like rocks. And there's never any engagement or comeback. So the idea of the committee, for me, in part, is also one not of seeking public comment, but of public engagement. And, I think of myself, like if I were younger and hadn't been to so many meetings and was concerned about this, and I came into the mayor and council meeting, and I said what I wanted, what I thought was a great thing for Heron Park, and everybody just looked at me, and I walked out, and I never heard from anybody. Again, that's incredibly frustrating. So one of the functions of this committee to me is going to be to solicit input, but also to provide a reasoned response to elements that are suggested that aren't used. So, the committee comes up with a plan, the land use plan for this is going to be a better one that suits, Berlin better. And the folks that come in there and say, we want to capture Chessie the sea monster and put her in the lagoon and charge admission, they're going to get a response that's going to say, we talked to the Salisbury State, zoology department, and Chessie the sea monster doesn't exist, so we can't proceed with your idea. But I mean, that's kind of a joke, but it's also serious that, I think that's the way that you get, one, less discord over this in the town, And two, you get people united behind a land use plan for it, because you give people the respect of really sitting down, not, pardon me, at a Diaz, sitting down with them, soliciting input, providing reasoned responses to people's ideas. And that hopefully leads to, congealing us behind a plan that has much broader buy-in and much, more enthusiasm and acceptance from the community. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments from the public? Dave, you have anything else?
No.
Ron, you want to make a recommendation?
I'd like to make a motion that we
don't really have an action item, so.
We don't, but we can do what we want, and they want something from us.
They want something?
They don't want just what we said, they want something. So,
Informal?
informal, whatever, however we want to do it, I'm gonna make a motion, and you guys can deal with it however you may.
I would call it a consensus vote.
Consensus, okay. I'm gonna say that one of the consensus that I would be looking for is that we have the mayor and council immediately cease negotiations on this contract. For a lot of reasons that we don't need to go into right now. I think they've all been discussed. And that we begin discussion about what Ed was talking about, a group of professionals in town, another committee that could deal with the issues on site. And basically, it would be a planning exercise. It would be planners, from surveyors to lawyers and consultants and architects and engineers, that could come up with a site plan based on what we hear, what we talk about amongst the townsfolk and the mayor and council. And then we determine if we want to sell any, and if we do what, what do we want to sell it as? Like why are residences restricted? That's a good question. So I guess that would be my motion or request or suggestion. And I guess we should take a vote.
I would add to that, I think if we don't have to spend anything to use that grant, then we spend that grant.
Yes. Add that in.
Use it.
That would be number one.
Demolish what we can.
That would be number one.
If it makes financial sense. I don't know all the ins and outs of that.
It does. It doesn't make financial sense
Use the grant.
to lose the grant. That really doesn't make sense.
Other than that, right?
Yeah.
That's just not happening.
Yeah.
You can pay
So
the-
it would be to use the grant judiciously, and then after cease of negotiations, and begin discussion about a group of citizens, property owners that could help the town and mayor and council find a way through this and not sell property with unknowns and end up in over $1 million worth of debt still.
I don't know whether you want to refer your statement there.
But yeah, I'll refer this. This would be,
Is that written by you or is it?
Ed came up with it.
The only thing I don't like about it is all experts on this panel will be chosen according to gender. I don't give a damn what gender you are. I want the best people we can get.
It says to take it into consideration.
I think it's just making sure that there's not a bunch of white guys sitting up here.
Yeah, I was about to say, look at yourselves and look at the town. I think part of the idea is that, and it's just a suggestion. And
I'm not saying to adopt this,
No
I'm saying-
status, but the idea is to try to be a little inclusive.
What are your opinions? I had talked to Ron briefly about this, about having one person from the city, one person from the council, a person from the planning committee, and a person from the parks committee, and then 6 others, whatever number works out to be. That way there's direct contact with the other people on the boards for input, communication, etc.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, as long as I think the only caveat that I would put on it would be that the people that were from the town that were serving would be serving in an equal capacity to.
It is. I don't want them operating in this capacity, but the lack of communication is kind of how we got here.
Yeah.
And, I talk to Ron text message quite often, and it's nice when, if he was the person representing it and he was picking our brains. Because we're very invested in how we're going to look at it. And then so it doesn't bring 15 more people to the table, but it brings more of a think tank situation.
And it's more inclusive. I think people feel better about it.
But who picks this committee? And what power does it have? There's an advisory committee.
There is,
Well, can I can,
you're looking to like sanction this by the.
Yes,
By-
so I would say that the mayor and council choose them. I think that we, because it's our business, suggest some people maybe, they choose them.
But that's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
The mayor and council will be
yeah,
doing
because I don't want, whoever's on the committee is not going to want to go through everything, not being sanctioned, and then doing all the work, and then having the mayor and council say thanks.
Say thanks, but we
Yeah,
really mean nothing.
which I don't think they'll do, but I think it's important that they have the sanction of being sanctioned of the mayor and council.
it actually says in the proposal that, that the members should be unanimously appointed by the mayor and council. And there's also a conflict of interest procedure there, that at the first meeting, that any conflicts of interest would be declared and noted. And if the committee as a whole felt that any person was so conflicted so as it would cloud their judgment about the outcomes, that they could refer the matter to the ethics commission. But I think in my perception of this, we primarily want to get, we're not looking for hardcore advocates of one thing or another or anything. This is supposed to be an honest intellectual exercise to really do the best that we can. So like, I wouldn't envision the committee as being one that's like, we're going to pick someone from this constituency, we're going to pick someone from this constituency. Instead, we're going to try to pick people that have the training and the experience and the qualifications, who are not hard committed to one option or another.
It'd be like the town hiring a design team from its constituents.
It might be good if there was something in there about the town will advertise for people who want to come forward and solicit themselves to be on the committee and tell us why they want it.
I'm sure they will.
That's assuming.
Sure, you're sure.
So the general consensus here is that basically, if you took a straw poll, it's a hard no. The contract ends.
Will we all say yes?
I would agree with that.
Will we all?
Too many unknowns.
Too many.
Wait, all 6 of us, right?
I mean, I can go along with the contract having issues, and there's a lot of things in there I wouldn't agree with, but on the town's behalf, I think that we need an updated appraisal by it's such a valuable piece of land. I think we need an updated appraisal by another appraiser, because those appraised values to me look way low.
How about after we come up with a plan? That way we have something to appraise.
Well, they appraise it now as it is, because that's the way you find it, but, I don't, I think there's, 10 acres of B2 in town is worth more than,
A house.
than they've got there, so.
How can you appraise the property without knowing its environmental status? Do we know that? Are those facts in existence?
There are environmental assessments.
But are they
They're
definitive?
dated. They're dated.
I can't answer
They
to
only go to a
exactly
certain level.
what they address, but there are environmental assessments that have been done.
I heard when the buildings come down, they're not going to be surprised if they discover pollution under the buildings.
I can't answer that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that's going on.
What was the thing about behind the fence? Was that all conspiracy theory? Behind the wooden fence?
What about stockade fence, like the parking is
Anybody have movie set back there?
Yeah, walking
Shadows.
walls of dead trees.
I walked that property with Jeff Fleetwood, and he would not let me near behind the fence, and he would not tell me what was behind the fence, but he told me that it was bad. So, I don't know, I have no idea what's behind the fence, but I will say that that is an actual experience, walking the property with the town manager.
And then there's no biters on my thought process of selling just parcel 57 for development.
I think that would be a consideration that we could come
At
up
least in
with.
the air, I mean, you know, things could change, but
Yeah.
that's a consideration.
Everything should be considered. At this point, nothing's been considered. But the two RFPs that came in under the shadow of desperation.
I wouldn't want to sell any parcel.
You want to know its full value.
Exactly.
Demo with our grant ourselves. And I'm just picking brains here. You're in that mode.
What's our incentive to sell the parcel? I mean, unless we're convinced the price is really right.
Right.
All right, so where are we at, Mr. Chairman?
Everything good?
I mean, we're not going to take a vote. I think we pretty much had a consensus.
Hey, let them read the minutes, they get
Well,
they're watching.
We'll be putting together, I was gonna say, with minutes, we'll be putting together a summation, like, and I'll share it with you. Because that's what the mayor and council wanted, they wanted us to report back. So, that'll be the recommendation. You had a consensus that you put this contract on pause to develop a better plan for the property. Yeah, I'm just asking
Right.
for your agreement now.
It's just there's
A
two
better
unknowns
plan
in
for
the
the property.
environmental aspect, maybe that could really
That,
cost.
that's developed by a committee.
Through that process, right?
Okay.
Is that right?
And use the grant,
And you-
and use the grant to the help.
Get on using the demo grant.
I'm with
Right.
you.
Right.
I'm with you. I don't want to turn that, we don't want to turn that money back in a way.
Get rid of it. No, people do it. We have a party over there.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the
All right?
Yeah.
That sounds good to me.
Okay. Are we done?
Sorry.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
No, there's
Second.
more steps.
So you want to acknowledge Ms. Phyllis Purnell for her
Oh, right.
20-plus years?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I
Since
put
you
that
were
in
here, I
there.
told her we'd have a cake for her, but.
I put that in the report. We do want to acknowledge Mrs. Phyllis Purnell. She has decided not to seek reappointment to the planning commission. I'm not exactly sure, like some of you aren't, how many years she's actually been on the planning commission. But it's in the 20s, and she's decided that she's not going to seek reappointment from the mayor. Her term is up in April. We invited her to come tonight, but she did not. So I want to publicly thank her for her service. She was always a good member. She always had certain aspects that she was a hard line on, that she was going to look out for people of town. And we'll miss her. Carol and I always had a good time. When we dropped off packets, she always had a good word for you. She wanted you to come in the house, you know. She was always good to us, and
Great lady, yep.
we will miss her.
The mayor and council might want to invite her to come to a meeting. That's something.
Yeah.
It's an idea.
I only have one comment. Old Ocean City Boulevard, there's an Airbnb, and I sent to Steve Green all the time in my spare time. They're just leaving trash bags out in the middle, like, next to their trash cans. And I know we're always gonna be fighting this Airbnb issue. I just wanna make sure that Steve did send it to you.
Okay, what?
There's a house on Old Ocean City Boulevard
There's a-
that's an active,
I think you told me the one
Oh, yeah,
there.
Airbnb.
yeah.
Are
Okay.
you talking about the one?
And it's
one out of
licensed,
town?
it's
Yeah, it's
licensed.
out of town.
Yeah.
That's a licensed Airbnb.
Huh?
It is?
Yes.
No, you're thinking it's wrong, it's the other
No,
one.
no, sorry, it's going towards Salisbury.
That one I got an application for, we haven't turned it down yet. I have to finish with that one.
Okay. I just,
We received an application for it.
I read an interesting article the other day
Finally.
where they actually had, the special projects person or whatever they're trying to put in to tackle this, where that person just perused VRBO and Airbnb and fined people via that, where they passed some ordinance to basically fine via online listings. That way it's not you trying to come up to houses at 9 p.m.
That's what we did with the latest. I have a court date with one of
Yeah,
one
I
of
saw
them.
it.
So that's how we determined that at the time.
Okay.
And that's how I determined the fine.
Okay.
Was by reservation. Because Mary and I had looked into that with both Verbo and Airbnb, which seemed to be the two most popular. And we had they have specific requirements, and I will say Airbnb did not get back to us with the information they said they were going to, but Virgo was very good. They right away got back to us. And,
Spoke to a lovely young woman in the Caribbean.
yeah, yeah.
Good for her.
She really was fantastic.
Okay, cool. I'm happy to hear it's moving forward. Thank you.
Adjourn. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor?
Thank you all.
Once I say. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not here tomorrow.
No, I didn't.